She only wanted one carefree night to forget her ex, but ended up living the wildest moment of her life. What Emily never imagined was that the irresistible stranger from the club would show up on Monday as the new captain of her precinct. Between secrets, teasing, and a passion too strong to control, she would soon discover that sometimes one night is enough to change everything. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. The romance is in the air. Friday nights used to be sacred for Emily Parker. Sweatpants, a blanket, and the kind of TV shows that wrapped problems in 42 minutes and a musical cue. Safety, predictability. After Mark, she'd clung to those like life vests. But Maya Johnson was having none of it. 2 months, Maya announced, hands on hips in Emily's doorway like a glamorous parole officer. You have mourned for 8 weeks, 3 pints of rocky road, and 1 very questionable haircut phase. It was 1-inch bangs, Emily said weakly. It was a cry for help, Maya corrected. Get dressed, we're going out. I'm not in the mood. You don't need a mood, you need mascara. Maya marched into the bedroom and threw open the closet. Dresses whispered on hangers like conspirators. She pulled out a black sheath with a modest neckline and a scandalous back, holding it up like a verdict. This one, and the red lipstick that makes men confess crimes they didn't commit. I have work tomorrow. It's Saturday tomorrow. Emily blinked. Oh, see? Maya said, triumphant. Your calendar needs tequila. 20 minutes later, Emily stood before her mirror, pulse loud in her ears. The dress was unforgiving in the best way. The heels elongated her legs and her problems. She'd tamed her hair into a sleek wave and traced a confident mouth she didn't quite feel. I look different, she said. You look like the main character, Maya replied, snapping a pic. Now let's give you a plot. The Hudson room pulsed before they even reached the velvet rope, bass thumping through the sidewalk, laughter spilling onto the street. A line snaked past the maroon awning. Sequins, suits, perfume, cologne, 100 private hopes waiting to be granted or denied by a clipboard. Trust me, Maya said. I flirted with the doorman once. He's more susceptible to dimples than policy. Please don't commit a federal crime, Emily muttered, but Maya was already waving. Eddie, Maya sang. It's been a minute. Eddie, built like a refrigerator with eyelashes, cracked a smile. Maya, you still crashing my line? I'm a taxpayer. She jerked a thumb toward Emily. Birthday girl. It is not my birthday, Emily said. Eddie's eyes twinkled. Happy birthday. He lifted the rope. Inside, the air shifted. Music vibrated the bones. Lights stitched colors across the dark, and the scent, lime, sweat, expensive cologne, wrapped around them like a dare. A mirrored ceiling reflected the tide of bodies below. The bar glowed like a runway. Rule number 1, Maya shouted over the beat, already flagging a bartender. No ex talk. Rule number 2, no work talk. Rule number 3, no 5-year plan talk. This is a tonight problem. What about rule number 4? Emily asked. Maya slapped 2 limes onto the counter. Tequila. They knocked back shots. Emily coughed, eyes watering, then laughed. A clean, sudden sound she hadn't heard from herself in weeks. There she is, Maya said, pointing at Emily's face. Welcome back. They ordered sparkling water chasers. For our kidneys, Maya declared, and stepped toward the dance floor. A crowd swelled and broke like a tide. The DJ slid into a bass line that thrummed along Emily's spine. Her body remembered before her mind did. She loosened, hips finding the rhythm, hair brushing her shoulders. See? Maya shouted. Soup for the soul. You said that about tequila. Exactly. Emily let herself watch the people around her, joy flashing off strangers she'd never see again. A woman in sequins threw her head back and laughed. A guy in a suit loosened his tie and forgot he owned a calendar. She could almost feel the old heaviness, Mark's name, the sting of the intern, the endless post-mortems, peel away like a bad sticker. That was when she saw him. Leaning against the bar like he had a reserved sign on gravity, broad shoulders filling a navy shirt that was both simple and criminally effective, hair that had been persuaded toward neatness and then defected at the last second, and those eyes, dark, watchful, amused, like he was in on a joke the room hadn't caught yet. Emily's gaze snapped back to Maya as if caught. "Maya," she said carefully, "do not look. There is a person at the bar." Maya pivoted so flamboyantly 3 people turned to look. "I love persons." "No, don't." "Okay," Maya reported with great solemnity. "That is a problem in a shirt." "I am not." "You don't have to. Just exist persuasively. Let Newton's third law do the rest." The music shifted, syrupy and sinuous. Maya waggled her brows, then twirled away into the crowd, leaving Emily alone in a sea of possibility. She closed her eyes and moved, not for him, for herself, for the muscle memory of being a woman in a room built for heat and light. Her hips rolled with the bass, her arms skimmed the air, her pulse climbed the ladder of the melody. When she opened her eyes, he was there, close enough to read her breath. He didn't rush the moment. He let it settle, as if asking a second question before the first was answered. Then he extended a hand. "May I?" His voice was low, the kind that doesn't blur in noise. Emily slid her hand into his, warm, calloused, real. The crowd closed around them and they began to move, no briefing required. He found her tempo and matched it. When she shifted, he followed. When he led, it was with the gentlest pressure at her waist, a conversation of palms and breath. He didn't ask for her name immediately. It made the anticipation hum. The DJ dropped the vocals out. The bass became a heartbeat. He leaned in, lips brushing the shell of her ear. "Logan," he said. "Emily." The name felt strange on her tongue, and exactly right. "Pleasure to meet you, Emily." He tested her name again, and something inside her tightened, sweet and sharp. "The pleasure's mine," she managed. The corner of his mouth curved. "Not yet." She laughed, startled at the dangerous spark of it. The sound lit his eyes. The dance changed almost imperceptibly. No longer strangers mapping a rhythm, but 2 people sketching an outline they both understood. He let his breath touch the line of her jaw without kissing. She tipped her chin, denying and offering at once. When she dragged her nails, barely, along the inside of his forearm, his exhale stuttered. The reaction sprinted straight through her. "Drink?" he asked when the track eased. "Yes," she said, then caught his sleeve before he could turn. But not at the bar. A flicker of surprise, then amusement. He didn't ask where. He let her lead. They threaded through a corridor washed in cobalt light. The women's line coiled past a velvet bench. Muffled laughter spilled under the door. The men's room hung open, empty, absurdly pristine in the moment's hush. "Really?" he asked, laughter in the word. "Unless you're the cautious type," she said, breathless and braver than she felt. "Careful is for weekdays." He lifted a hand, but stopped a breath away, asking without asking. The courtesy hit her like a second drink. She closed the inch herself. The first kiss was a sharp intake of night. He tasted like lime and something warm. He kissed like he listened, attentive and sure, letting her decide the depth, the pace, the ruin. When she pressed closer, he yielded and matched her, a tide answering the moon. The cool tile at her back made everything else hotter. She felt his palm slide to her waist, pause like a question mark, then settle with the gentlest insistence. Time did that elastic thing joy does. It stretched and snapped. A laugh that wasn't quite a laugh broke against his mouth. He smiled into the kiss and she felt it, a spark under her ribs. When he lifted her just enough that her toes skimmed the floor, she looped her legs around his hips, shocked at herself, and not sorry at all. He broke away just enough to breathe, his forehead resting against hers. "You're beautiful." "Don't ruin this with talking," she said, grinning. "Yes, ma'am," he murmured, and kissed her like a promise. Minutes, or hours, later, they parted, reluctant and breathless. Emily smoothed her dress with unsteady hands, every nerve thrumming. He raked a hand through rebellious hair and failed to tame it, which felt cosmically correct. "That was," he started. "Unexpected," she offered. "Incredible," he said. No swagger, only truth. Silence gathered, but it wasn't awkward. It was saturated. He studied her face, and the intensity of it made her feel simultaneously admired and undressed. She had the wild sense he was committing details to memory, a freckle near her brow, the way her lipstick had blurred at the edges, the tiny swallow in her throat she couldn't control. "I should go," she said, because one of them had to say something sensible before sanity sued for damages. "Should you?" His voice warmed. He didn't touch her again. That not touching made her dizzy. "My friend, she'll be looking for me." He nodded like a gentleman in a 19th century novel. When she reached for the door, his fingers grazed her wrist. Not a possessive touch, just a punctuation mark. "Can I see you again?" he asked, steady, unhurried. "Yes," rose up like a sunrise. "Maybe it's better if we leave it like this," she said instead, the words tasting like restraint and citrus. "Perfect." A flicker of disappointment crossed his eyes, and then was replaced by a slower smile, like he was tucking the moment into a safe place. "If you change your mind," he said, "I won't." She stepped back into the blue-lit corridor. The bass swallowed her whole. Maya caught her in under 30 seconds. "Where did you— Oh my God!" Maya squinted, then squealed. "You are literally glowing." "Don't ask," Emily said, unable to stop her smile from breaking wide open. "You absolutely will tell me," Maya declared, dragging her toward the bar. "I will subpoena your diary." They paid their tab. The bouncer waved them goodnight like an indulgent uncle. On the sidewalk, the city was a ribbon of headlights and laughter. While Maya argued with a taxi app, Emily looked back through the glass. He was there. Of course he was, leaning on the bar again, like the room revolved on his axis. Their eyes met across neon and mirror. He lifted his glass in a small toast that was somehow private in a crowd. She answered with 2 fingers, a barely there salute, feeling like she'd been given a secret and a dare all at once. In the cab, Maya wriggled in her seat like a child at Christmas. Name, occupation, salary, star sign. "Logan," Emily said, watching the city stream by in liquid gold. "No last name." "Hot, mysterious. We love it." It was just a moment. Maya scoffed. "Sure, and I don't online stalk my crushes." "You absolutely do." "With ethics," Maya said primly. Emily leaned her head against the cool window. Her reflection looked like a woman she might like soon, a woman who could act on a want without asking permission from her past. She could still taste lime and heat, still feel the unhurried steadiness of him, the way he hadn't pushed, hadn't taken, had simply met her where she was and matched her there. It was a night. One night, bright and sealed, like a firework in a jar. It didn't have to mean anything. Still, when she fell into bed, the city humming outside her window like a lullaby, the memory of his mouth found her in the dark. She smiled, helpless, ridiculous, and tucked the moment under her ribs like a contraband treasure. Monday was coming. Coffee. Reports. Predictable beats. She would return to all of it, the safe rhythm she knew by heart. And yet, far below that certainty, something had shifted, quietly and for good. Because sometimes a door you only meant to lean on opens. Sometimes a kiss is a beginning disguised as a bad idea, and sometimes one night refuses to stay only. Monday mornings were never kind to Emily Parker, but this one was merciless. The alarm shattered the silence at 6 a.m., and for a moment she didn't know where she was, caught between the warmth of her sheets and the echo of a kiss that had followed her all weekend. She pressed her face into the pillow, groaning. It was just one night, she told herself. One reckless, tequila-soaked night. Forget it. But forgetting was impossible when she could still feel his hands guiding her across the dance floor, still hear his velvet voice saying her name like it meant something. Emily shuffled into the kitchen, made coffee that tasted like survival, and stood barefoot in front of her closet. She tried to pick something practical. Neutral blouse, black skirt. Instead, her hand landed on a cobalt blue blouse she hadn't worn in months, the one that brightened her eyes. Professional, she muttered at her reflection. Not suggestive. Definitely not because of him. Her reflection didn't believe her. The city was sluggish that morning. Gray sky pressing low, horns blaring in impatient symphony. Emily navigated through the familiar chaos toward the precinct, her tote bag bouncing against her hip. Inside, the building buzzed with its usual early-hour rhythm. Phones ringing, the clack of keyboards, printers spitting endless reports. The scent of burnt coffee and old carpet clung to the air. She nodded to Officer Green at the front desk, traded a tired smile with Detective Harris by the file cabinets. Normal, ordinary, safe, except her pulse hadn't been normal since Friday. She pushed into the break room, desperate for caffeine stronger than what she'd brewed at home. Maya was already there, perched on the counter with her second cup, as if she owned the place. "Morning, Trouble," Maya said, eyes gleaming. Emily poured her coffee. "Don't call me that." "Why not? You've been walking around like a woman with secrets, which, by the way, is my favorite aesthetic on you." Emily rolled her eyes. "It was just one night," Maya gasped theatrically. "So there was a one night. Emily Parker, you dark horse. Lower your voice." But Maya leaned closer, whispering conspiratorially. "So? Was he worth the heels and the tequila?" Emily tried to fight the smile tugging at her lips. "Maya." The door creaked open. Footsteps. A presence that shifted the air before she even looked up. Emily turned casually, coffee mug halfway to her mouth, and froze. Logan. He filled the doorway in a gray suit that looked carved for him, his dark eyes locking onto hers instantly. For a heartbeat, surprise cracked his confident mask. Then it was gone, replaced with a professional calm that made her pulse stumble even harder. The world around her blurred. Maya's gasp, the hum of the vending machine, the chatter in the hall. All Emily could process was him, her Logan. No, not hers. Not anymore. "Good morning," he said evenly, his voice exactly as she remembered. Low, velvety, dangerous in its restraint. Emily's hand trembled. Coffee sloshed dangerously close to the rim. Maya blinked, mouth half open. Hi?" Logan's gaze didn't leave Emily's. "You must be Emily Parker, records clerk." The formality hit like a bucket of ice water. She straightened, clutching her mug like a lifeline. "Yes, sir, that's me." He extended a hand. She took it before she could think, and the contact burned through her like static. "Captain Logan Carter," he said, "transferred in from Chicago. I'll be leading this precinct from today forward." Maya nearly choked on her sip. "Captain? As in, new captain?" Emily's stomach sank. The man she'd kissed like oxygen wasn't just back. He was her superior. Forcing a steady voice, Emily managed. "Welcome, Captain Carter. I hope your transition here is smooth." Logan's lips tilted, professional to everyone else. But Emily saw it, the flicker of amusement. "I have a feeling it will be memorable." The words slid between them like a secret. Maya's gaze bounced from one to the other, her expression sharpening. "Wait. You two don't know," Emily blurted too fast. "We don't." Logan's brow arched almost imperceptibly, his eyes still locked on hers. "Not yet," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure Maya could hear it too. The break room filled with awkward silence. Someone in the hall called for extra copies. A phone rang. Emily set her mug down before she dropped it, her fingers buzzing from the handshake that had lasted a second too long. Logan released her with calm precision, then addressed them both with the tone of a man who wore authority like a second skin. "I look forward to working closely with this team. I'll see you both at the staff meeting in 10 minutes. And just like that, he was gone. Maya whipped around, eyes wide as saucers. "Oh my God." Emily sank into a chair, face in her hands. "I'm dead. You didn't just hook up with a stranger." Maya's voice rose with gleeful horror. "You hooked up with the captain." "Emily, this is not a sitcom. This is a scandal," Emily groaned. "Don't remind me." But deep down, beneath the panic, one truth pulsed steady and undeniable. Seeing him again didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something she wasn't ready for, but couldn't stop. The conference room was already buzzing when Emily slipped inside, notebook clutched like a shield. Rows of chairs faced the front, where a large whiteboard was covered in bullet points left from last week. A projector hummed, casting pale light across the long table. Colleagues chatted in clusters, balancing styrofoam cups and half-finished reports. Emily chose a seat in the third row, far enough to avoid attention, close enough to look like she belonged. She exhaled slowly, reminding herself, professional, invisible. Forget Friday. But there he was, standing at the head of the room, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal strong forearms, a pen spinning effortlessly between his fingers as he scanned his notes. Captain Logan Carter. He looked composed, authoritative, a man in charge. But Emily knew what it felt like when those same hands framed her face, when his lips pressed fire into hers. The memory struck like a punch, and she dropped her gaze to the blank page in her notebook. The meeting began. Logan's voice filled the space, deep, smooth, steady. He spoke of restructuring shifts, integrating records more closely with investigative teams, streamlining communication. His words were sharp, professional, but Emily could barely track them. Each syllable tugged at memory, dragging her back to a neon-lit club and the taste of lime and tequila. She tried to take notes, but her pen hovered uselessly. Every time his gaze swept the room, her chest tightened. She told herself she imagined it, that his eyes didn't linger when they landed on her. But they did, and every second stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. Detective Harris cracked a joke about more paperwork, and drew scattered laughs. Logan smiled politely, but when his gaze flicked back to Emily, it softened. Just for a moment. Enough to make her throat go dry. "Any questions?" Logan asked after 30 minutes, pacing slowly across the front. His presence was magnetic, every eye following his movement. Emily kept her head down, scribbling nonsense lines. "Parker," he said suddenly, his tone smooth as silk. Her head shot up, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Yes, Captain?" "You look like you have something to add." The entire room turned. Dozens of eyes pinned her in place. Her mouth went dry. "No, sir. Everything's clear." Logan tilted his head slightly, watching her longer than necessary. Then he smiled, professional to the group, but Emily saw it. That private glint, that dare. "Good," he said. "Glad to hear it." When the meeting wrapped, chairs scraped and chatter filled the air again. People filed out in clumps, carrying files and murmuring about new protocols. Emily gathered her things with shaking hands, silently praying she could slip out unnoticed. "Parker." Logan's voice stopped her cold. "Stay a moment." Her pulse spiked. She forced her face neutral as the last few stragglers left. Maya shot her a look on the way out, half warning, half gleeful curiosity, before the door closed and silence settled like heavy fog. Emily looked up. Logan was leaning casually against the door now, arms crossed, blocking the exit with infuriating ease. His gaze was locked on her, steady and unblinking. "Well," he said finally, the word thick with unspoken things. "That was interesting." Emily swallowed hard, clutching her notebook. "Complicated is the better word." "Complicated can be exciting," he countered, his mouth curving into the faintest smile. "Captain Carter," she began, mustering all the professionalism she had left. "What happened Friday was unforgettable," he interrupted, his voice lower now. Her breath caught. "It was a mistake." "Funny," he said softly, pushing off the door to step closer. "Didn't feel like a mistake when you pulled me into that kiss?" Emily's knees weakened. She backed toward the table, putting distance where her heart begged for closeness. "This can't happen again." "Can't?" His brow lifted, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Or won't?" "Both," she whispered, though the word cracked. He studied her a long moment, then leaned just enough for his voice to brush her ear. "Look me in the eye, Emily. Tell me you don't feel it right now. Tell me, and I'll walk away." Her chest heaved. Her eyes darted to his, and what she saw there nearly unraveled her. Hunger, yes, but also something deeper, something terrifying in its sincerity. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The door creaked open suddenly. Maya stuck her head in. "Oh, didn't realize, Her eyes flicked between them, narrowing suspiciously. "Everything okay here?" "Yes," Emily blurted, far too quickly. "Perfectly fine." Logan's smile was faint but unmistakable. "Just establishing procedures," he said smoothly. "Procedures," Maya repeated, clearly unconvinced. She backed out slowly, eyes still darting between them. "Carry on." The door shut again. Silence thickened. Logan straightened, finally giving Emily some space. "We'll talk later," he said, voice calm but loaded. "There's nothing to talk about," she lied. His eyes glimmered with something dangerous. "We'll see." And with that, he left her standing alone, her pulse thundering loud enough to drown out reason. The following week was a masterclass in denial. Emily came in early, left late, and buried herself in reports as if ink and paper could erase memory. Logan was equally disciplined. He spoke to her only when absolutely necessary, his tone clipped and professional. To anyone else, they looked like co-workers circling one another with polite efficiency. But the silence was too perfect, too sharp. And silence never fooled Maya. "Parker, I swear," Maya whispered one afternoon, leaning across the desk. "You two are radiating so much unspoken tension. I'm getting secondhand heart palpitations." Emily didn't look up from her file. "Maya, don't Maya me. Half the precinct has noticed. People stop talking when you walk into a room together. That is not normal." Emily's pen pressed too hard against the paper. "We're professionals." "Sure," Maya said with a smirk. "And I'm Beyoncé." Emily shot her a warning glare, but it was too late. The door opened, footsteps echoed across the room, and the atmosphere shifted. She didn't need to look. She felt him, like gravity, unavoidable. "Captain," Maya chirped brightly, all innocence. "We were just discussing office supplies." "Riveting," Logan replied dryly. His eyes flicked toward Emily, lingering just a second too long. Maya grinned. Emily's pen snapped in half. The break room became dangerous territory. Emily had gone in just for coffee, black, no sugar, her armor for the day. She was stirring it when Detective Miller strolled in, flashing his trademark grin. "Hey, Parker," he said, leaning against the counter far too close. "You ever take a lunch break? I know this great Italian place near the river. Best carbonara in town. You should let me show you." Emily offered a polite smile. "Thanks, but I've got too much paperwork." "Paperwork can wait." His hand brushed her arm, lingering a second too long. "You look like someone who needs to relax." Her pulse spiked, not from Miller but from the voice that cut through the room. Detective Miller. Logan stood in the doorway, jaw tight, eyes locked on the offending hand. His tone was deceptively calm. "Don't you have an interrogation scheduled at 2? Miller straightened instantly, grin faltering. "Yes, Captain." "I was just—" "Then I suggest you prepare for it," Logan said, his voice low but razor sharp. Miller muttered something and backed out quickly, leaving Emily clutching her coffee. When the door shut, she turned slowly toward Logan, arching a brow. "Jealous, Captain?" His gaze didn't waver. He was out of line. "It's my job to maintain a respectful workplace." Emily's lips curved. So gallant. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Careful, Emily. Keep teasing me and I might just show you what I'm jealous of." Her breath caught, words stuck in her throat, but before she could respond, Maya appeared, again, with perfect timing. "Wow," she said, grabbing a soda from the fridge. "Why does it feel like I just walked into a soap opera?" Emily nearly choked on her coffee. "It's nothing." Logan's expression smoothed into professional calm, but not before sending Emily a look so loaded she nearly dropped her cup. 2 days later, everything escalated. The deputy chief called both Emily and Logan into his office. He was a broad man with a thinning hairline and a no-nonsense tone. "We've got a situation in Albany," he said, sliding a file across the desk. "It ties into our burglary series. I need both of you there to coordinate with local PD." Emily blinked. "Sir, maybe Detective Harris could go instead." "Harris is out sick," the chief interrupted, And frankly, the two of you make a strong team. Parker knows the protocols. Carter has field experience. Perfect match. Emily's stomach sank. Perfect match. If only he knew. Logan inclined his head. Understood, sir. Leave this afternoon, the chief added. Pack for 2 nights. Emily's pulse stumbled. 2 nights. Alone. With him. Outside the office, she hissed under her breath. This is a disaster. Logan's mouth curved slightly, the barest hint of amusement. We're 2 adults doing our jobs. This isn't just a job, she shot back. It's exactly, he said calmly. It's me. And you. Professionals. We'll survive. But when they walked side by side through the precinct toward the parking lot, Emily's heart pounded so loudly she was sure the whole building could hear. It wasn't survival she feared. It was surrender. The drive to Albany began in silence. Emily sat stiffly in the passenger seat of the black precinct SUV, hands clasped on her lap as if gripping her own restraint. Logan drove with infuriating calm, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift. The radio hummed with low news chatter until Logan reached over and switched it to music. Jazz, smooth and steady. It filled the car like something unspoken. Emily turned toward the window, watching the city dissolve into stretches of highway. Her reflection in the glass looked pale, restless. She was hyper-aware of everything. The rhythm of his fingers tapping on the wheel, the faint scent of cedarwood cologne, the quiet gravity of him. Finally, to break the tension, she cleared her throat. Do you always drive in total silence? Logan's lips curved faintly. Only when my passenger looks like she's planning an escape route. She bit back a smile. I'm not. Good, he said, eyes still on the road. Because I locked the doors at 60. Her laugh slipped out despite herself. The sound softened the air, just for a moment. They stopped halfway at a gas station. Emily stretched her legs while Logan filled the tank. He came back with 2 bottles of cold water and a bag of trail mix, handing one to her. Trying to bribe me with snacks? She asked. Protocol, he said smoothly. Dehydrated partners make bad partners. Partners, she repeated under her breath, the word sticking strangely in her chest. Back on the road, conversation trickled out cautiously. Books she'd never finish, the worst-case files he'd ever worked. Maya's habit of exaggerating every story she told. Slowly, the stiffness between them loosened, though underneath, the current still pulsed. By the time they reached Albany, the sky was bruised purple with twilight. The hotel stood near the river, a modest brick building with warm yellow lights glowing in the windows. At the front desk, Logan checked them in. The clerk slid 2 keycards across the counter. Room 204 and 206, she said cheerfully, right next to each other. Emily exhaled in relief. 2 rooms, walls, distance. They carried their bags upstairs, but before retreating into solitude, Logan asked, Dinner? Her stomach clenched, not from hunger but nerves. Shouldn't we just order in? You'll sleep better with real food, he said simply. Come on. The small Italian restaurant across the street smelled of garlic and wine. They sat at a corner table, candlelight flickering between them. Emily twirled pasta around her fork, trying to focus on anything but the way his gaze occasionally lingered too long. She forced herself into small talk. So, Chicago. Why transfer? Needed a change, Logan said. He sipped his wine, eyes steady on her. Sometimes life hands you a mess, and the only option is to start fresh. She nodded slowly, feeling the weight behind his words. I know what that feels like. Their eyes met across the candle, and for a dangerous second, neither of them looked away. Emily set down her fork. We should keep this professional, you know. Logan leaned back, expression unreadable. We should. But the way he said it promised they wouldn't. Back at the hotel, Emily stood outside her door, fumbling with the key card. Logan lingered across the hall at his own door, watching her. Good night, Parker, he said, voice low. Good night, Captain. But she didn't go inside. Not yet. She could feel him still there, the weight of his gaze. the shared silence between their doors. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Then, two soft knocks on her door. Her hand froze on the handle. She told herself not to open it, that this was a line they couldn't uncross, but her heart betrayed her. She pulled the door open. Logan stood there, tie gone, shirt collar loose, eyes darker than she'd ever seen. "Tell me to leave," he said quietly, "and I will." Emily's breath shook. Instead, she stepped back. "Come in." The click of the door behind them was like a match being struck. The kiss came first, hungry, inevitable. His hands framed her face as if she were fragile, but his mouth told a different story, desperate and sure. She clutched at his shirt, pulling him closer, her restraint collapsing in flames. "Are you sure?" he murmured against her lips. "Absolutely," she whispered. He guided her toward the bed with deliberate patience, every touch a question, every kiss an answer. His fingertips traced her arm, her waist, her back, as if memorizing her piece by piece. She shivered under the weight of it, not just desire, but recognition. When he finally laid her down, he hovered above her, searching her eyes. "No more hiding," he whispered. Emily's throat tightened. No more hiding. What followed was nothing reckless. It was slow, reverent, devastating. Every kiss was a promise, every caress a confession neither of them had dared speak. They weren't just giving in, they were choosing each other, fully, dangerously. Later, tangled in the sheets, Emily rested her head on his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear, grounding her in the storm. "This changes everything," she whispered. Logan pressed a kiss to her hair. "Good, because I don't want to go back." Emily closed her eyes, torn between fear and exhilaration. She knew the risks, the gossip, the rules, the threat of discovery. But she also knew this. For the first time in years, she felt alive. And there was no undoing it now. Back in Manhattan, Emily expected things to settle. After Albany, after the hotel, she thought maybe they could slip back into routine, bury their secret under case files and fluorescent lights. But secrets don't stay buried in a precinct, not when two people can't stop looking at each other. The morning after their return, Emily sat at her desk, typing up reports with mechanical precision. Every time Logan passed, she felt his presence like static against her skin. He didn't linger, didn't touch, but his eyes brushed hers in the way a hand might skim across a table. Brief, electric, impossible to ignore. Detective Harris walked by with a stack of folders, muttering, "Guess paperwork's more exciting these days." Emily frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," he said quickly, but his smirk betrayed him. Maya appeared moments later, sliding into the chair across from Emily with her coffee like a judge entering court. "So," she said, voice low, "when exactly were you planning on telling me?" Emily stiffened. "Telling you what?" Maya leaned forward, eyes sparkling. "That you and Captain Carter practically combust when you're in the same room. Honestly, Em, you two could power the entire building with all that unresolved heat." Emily's cheeks burned. It's nothing like that." "Uh-huh." Maya sipped her coffee, unfooled. "You can keep lying to everyone else, but not to me. I saw how he looked at you during the briefing. That is not how bosses look at employees. That's how men look at women. Well, you know." Emily tried to roll her eyes, but her pulse betrayed her. "We're professionals." Maya grinned. "Keep saying that. Maybe one day you'll believe it." For 2 weeks the dance continued. Logan avoided her in obvious ways, leaving the break room when she entered, scheduling his lunches off-site. Emily mirrored him, coming in earlier than usual, slipping out late. But distance was a fragile disguise. Every meeting was a battlefield of stolen glances. Every hallway encounter left them rattled. And slowly, others began to notice. Conversation stopped when one of them walked in. Laughter turned to whispers. Emily hated it. The scrutiny. The fear. But she hated most the hollow ache of pretending he was nothing more than her captain. Then came the breaking point. Maya burst into the break room one afternoon, eyes wide. She shut the door quickly, lowering her voice. You need to hear this. Emily's stomach dropped. What now? I overheard the deputy chief and the admin director. They're considering transferring you. Emily froze, coffee halfway to her lips. Transferring me? Why? They didn't say it out loud, but they used phrases like team dynamics and better resource placement. Maya's gaze sharpened. Emily, I think someone suspects. This is their way of separating you two. The words slammed into her chest. Transfer. Leave the precinct. Leave him. When? She whispered. Meeting's Monday. If they approve it, you're gone by the end of the month. Emily's hands shook so badly she set her cup down before she dropped it. Oh my God. Maya reached across the table, gripping her arm. You have to tell him. That evening, Logan found her at her desk, long after most of the precinct had emptied. He leaned against the edge of her table, his expression serious. You've been avoiding me all day, he said softly. What's going on? Emily glanced around. The room was empty, but her chest still tightened. Not here. An hour later, they sat in his apartment, the city glowing outside the windows. This time there was no heat, no teasing, only dread. She told him everything. The overheard conversation, the meeting, the looming transfer. With each word, his expression darkened. No, Logan said firmly, standing to pace the room. They can't just pull you out like that. You're essential to this precinct. To me. Logan. I'll go straight to the deputy chief. I'll make it clear. And what will you say? Emily cut in, voice breaking. That I'm indispensable? That you can't function without me? You think they won't question why? He stopped, raking a hand through his hair in frustration. So what? What's the alternative? That I let them take you? Her throat tightened. Maybe it's for the best. He turned sharply, eyes blazing. For the best? Tears pricked her eyes. Maybe it's the only way to end this before it destroys us. Logan dropped to his knees in front of her, taking her trembling hands. His voice was rough, desperate. You are not a problem, Emily. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. I can't lose you. Not like this. Her tears spilled over. Do you think this is easy for me? That I want to leave? Then don't, he said fiercely. Stay. With me. We'll figure it out. How? She whispered. His grip tightened, his gaze unwavering. We stop hiding. We make it official. We take away their leverage. Emily blinked, stunned. Official? What are you saying? His next words crashed into her like thunder. Marry me. Emily stared at him, heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Marry you? She whispered, her voice a mixture of disbelief and panic. Logan, that's crazy. Maybe, he admitted, still on his knees in front of her. His hands held hers firmly, grounding her. But it's the only thing that makes sense. If we're married, no one can tear us apart. No rumors, no transfers. It becomes their problem, not ours. Her throat tightened. You're asking me to marry you because of politics? Because of the department? He shook his head slowly. His eyes softened, losing all pretense of the captain who commanded a room. Here, he was just a man, raw and vulnerable. No. I'm asking you to marry me because I love you. Because every second since that night, I've known I can't live without you. The job is just the excuse. You're the reason. The words cracked something open inside her. She wanted to laugh at the insanity of it. They'd known each other for weeks, not years. And yet, she believed him. She felt it too. Tears slipped down her cheeks. What if it doesn't work? She whispered. What if it does? His voice was steady, his gaze locked on hers. Emily, I've risked my life on hunches with less certainty than what I feel about you. Marry me. Not because of them. Because of us. She pressed her trembling hands to his jaw, searching his face. No arrogance, no games, just truth. And then, quietly, as if it had been waiting all along, the words spilled from her lips. Yes. Logan's smile broke across his face, pure and unstoppable. He surged up, wrapping her in his arms, kissing her with a hunger that carried relief, joy, and promise all at once. The following Monday, the precinct hummed with its usual chaos, phones ringing, keyboards clattering, officers trading banter. But behind the deputy chief's door, everything felt different. Emily sat rigid in the chair beside Logan as the chief studied them over his glasses. "So," he said slowly, "Captain Carter tells me you two are engaged." Emily's stomach lurched. She forced herself to nod. "Yes, sir, it's true." The chief leaned back, his face unreadable for a long moment. Then, to her utter shock, he chuckled. "Well, that certainly changes things. We can't exactly transfer a bride-to-be now, can we?" Emily blinked. Relief surged so suddenly it left her dizzy. "Of course," the chief continued, growing serious. "You'll need to fill out the proper disclosure forms. Keep everything professional in the workplace. But as long as you do that, I see no reason to interfere." He glanced at Logan. "I'll hold you responsible, Captain. Make sure this doesn't turn into a circus." "Yes, sir," Logan said smoothly, but his hand brushed Emily's under the table, a secret squeeze that made her pulse race. As they rose to leave, the chief added, "One more thing. Make sure I get an invitation to the wedding." Emily nearly stumbled, her face flaming. In the hallway, Maya was waiting, arms crossed, eyes wide. "Well, what happened?" Emily opened her mouth, but Logan answered calmly, "We're engaged." Maya froze. Then, in a move completely lacking restraint, she shrieked so loudly that half the precinct turned to look. "Engaged? Engaged? Oh my God, Emily Parker!" Emily grabbed her arm. "Keep your voice down." Maya slapped her hand away. "Down? Girl, this is history. Forget paperwork. I'm throwing you a bachelorette party if it kills me." Emily groaned. "Maya." But Maya was already bouncing in her heels. "This is better than Netflix. Do you know how long I've been waiting for my life to turn into a rom-com? And you, my best friend, you're living it." Emily buried her face in her hands while Logan smirked beside her. "She's never going to let you live this down," he murmured. Emily peeked at him through her fingers. "Don't encourage her," Maya beamed. "Too late. I'm ordering balloons, and champagne, and maybe strippers." "Maya," Emily hissed. "What? We're celebrating." Logan's chuckle rumbled low, and Emily glared at him. But even through her embarrassment, her chest ached with something else. Happiness. Real, terrifying happiness. The weeks that followed blurred into a whirlwind of forms, whispered congratulations, and covert planning. Rumors spread through the precinct, but for once Emily didn't feel fear. She had Logan's hand in hers, his promise in her ear, and a future she hadn't dared to imagine suddenly unfolding in front of her. One evening, while Maya flipped through bridal magazines with exaggerated seriousness, "You're going strapless, end of discussion," Emily caught her own reflection in the window. She hardly recognized herself. Not because of the dress fittings or the ring on her finger, but because of the light in her eyes. It had been years since she'd looked like a woman in love. The day of the wedding dawned bright, as if the city itself had decided to play witness. The spring air carried the faint sweetness of blooming lilacs, the kind of morning that promised new beginnings. Emily stood before the mirror in the bridal suite, her hands trembling as Maya adjusted the delicate lace at her shoulders. The dress was simple but elegant, ivory silk that hugged her waist and spilled into a gentle train. It wasn't about extravagance, it was about meaning. "You look like you stepped out of a fairy tale," Maya whispered, her eyes already misty. Emily smiled nervously. "Fairy tales usually start with a kiss in a club bathroom." Maya burst out laughing. "Okay, maybe not that one, but still, it worked." Her best friend's words settled something inside her. It had worked. Against all odds, against rules and whispers and fear, it had led here. The ceremony took place in a small garden just outside the city, lanterns strung from oak branches, white chairs lined in neat rows. Colleagues, family, and a few close friends filled the space, their murmurs blending with the sound of birds overhead. When Emily stepped onto the aisle, every noise faded. Logan stood waiting in a charcoal suit, broad-shouldered and impossibly handsome. His dark eyes locked on her with such raw emotion, she felt her knees weaken. Each step carried her closer to him, and with everyone, the chaos of their past weeks melted away. By the time she reached him, her world had narrowed to his steady hands, reaching for hers. The vows were simple, promises of honesty, strength, and laughter. Logan's voice broke only once when he said, "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Emily squeezed his hand, steadying him even as her own tears slipped free. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the kiss that followed wasn't just tender, it was triumphant. A seal on every risk, every reckless decision, every moment that had brought them here. The reception was held under a wide white tent in the same garden. Strings of lights glowed above, casting everything in golden warmth. Glasses clinked, plates filled with food, and laughter rose with the music. Colleagues who once whispered now raised toasts. Detective Harris stood first, clearing his throat. When I heard Parker and the captain were together, I thought, well, there goes professionalism. The crowd laughed. But then I realized, they're proof that sometimes the best partners aren't just found on paper. To Emily and Logan. The room erupted in cheers. Then Maya stood, holding her champagne flute high. "Now, I could say something sweet," she began. "But instead, let me remind you all. This entire love story started because I dragged Emily out of her pajamas and into a club. You're welcome, world." Everyone roared with laughter. Emily covered her face, blushing, while Logan shook his head fondly. Maya grinned. "But seriously, these two have been through fire and came out stronger. So here's my toast. May your life together have more laughter than paperwork, more passion than rules, and may you never, ever forget that one reckless night can change everything." Glasses lifted. Emily hugged her best friend tight, whispering, "Thank you." As the night deepened, the band struck a softer tune. Logan extended his hand to Emily, bowing slightly. "Dance with me, Mrs. Carter." Her smile trembled with joy. "Always." They moved to the center of the floor. The first notes of a slow ballad filled the air, and suddenly the world was just the two of them, swaying beneath the lights. Emily rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Logan bent to murmur against her hair, "Do you regret that kiss in the club?" She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Never. It was the best mistake of my life." He smiled, spinning her gently. "Good. Because I plan on us making a lifetime of beautiful mistakes together." The guests cheered as he dipped her into a final kiss, laughter mingling with applause. Later, when the night quieted and the guests had begun to leave, Emily stood hand in hand with Logan, watching the lanterns sway in the breeze. She thought back to that Friday night, the tequila, the music, the stranger at the bar. It felt like another lifetime. And yet, it was the moment everything had begun. She leaned into him, whispering softly, "Sometimes all it takes is one night." He kissed her temple. And sometimes that one night turns into forever. The camera of imagination pulled back then. The couple framed in golden light, the city glittering beyond. A promise sealed not just in words, but in the lives they were about to build together. Sometimes all it takes is one night of freedom, a little courage, and the willingness to let go of fear. Emily learned that not every wild choice ends in regret. Some lead to forever. If you enjoyed Emily and Logan's story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what moment touched you the most. Because sometimes, the greatest love stories begin in the most unexpected places. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.